A year later, my mother had a car accident and was ordered to go to rehab. The state of Alabama awarded custody to our grandparents for my sister and me. So my dad, my sister, and I moved in with them. I tried to fill the emotional needs of my sister. I didn't want her to feel as empty as I did, and I became very protective over her. When my mom came back, she was clean for about 6 months before the strain of living with my grandparents got to her. She tried to commit suicide for a second time and went back to rehab. When she got out, my parents were in and out of court and told us to lie to the judge, saying everything's okay so we could be with them. I learned it was easier to lie to get what you want. The state awarded custody back to my parents, and I was overjoyed, and I thought everything was just going to be great. After moving to Decatur, my relationship with my mom changed. I would avoid her, and when I couldn't, I would take care of her. I would find her passed out or barely able to move. Her infidelity to my dad was way out of control, and I caught her almost every time. I resented my mom for cheating, and I resented my dad for not being there. I thought he didn't care or he wouldn't let this keep happening. My mother started to physically abuse my family. The first time it happened to me, I lied to her and said I was going to the movies with a friend. Instead, we drove around with my friend and 2 guys. The guy I met told me how sweet and cute I was, and I thought it was great just to be noticed. When we got back to the theater, my parents caught us being dropped off. I don't recall my dad saying much of anything. My mom was livid. She thought I had sex with this boy, and when I got home, she took me to my room. She screamed and she hit me. My dad stayed in the living room. She then took me to the bathroom. She stripped me down and filled the bathtub with scalding hot water and Clorox. She scrubbed me until my hands bled, and I cried the whole time, wishing it would soon be over. She left, and I got out and went to my room, and I was fine until she came into my room yelling and hitting again. She finally got tired and left. I felt so worthless and alone. I had 3 boyfriends during that year. I lost my purity, and a new pattern emerged, my sexual addiction. From the ages of 16 to 18, I went through a lot of boyfriends, and I had a problem with commitment. I wanted them all to love me. While I was in college, I began to steal to get what I wanted. I thought by doing drugs, I could become numb to pain. I thought that I could go through life numb, and it was much better than being sober or dealing with a heartache. This is when God stepped in. Hebrews 12:6 says, "For whom the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives." I went to a party in Mississippi with friends, and they left me there. I had 1 drink, and the rest was a blur. On November 30th, 1997, I was raped. The next day, my friends came back. The only thing I noticed was being bruised and sore. I was confused. I was incoherent. My boyfriend had just come back home from basic training a few weeks after the incident, and then the symptoms of my pregnancy started to show. I thought the baby was his. Our families pushed us to marry, and when I found out the baby wasn't his, it was too late. My husband was my best friend. I loved him and felt he was safe to love. I didn't tell him about the baby in fear of losing him. I wanted a better life. A year later, my mother told my in-laws my secret, that my daughter wasn't his biological child. I was 4 months pregnant with my son, and I had 4 hours to tell my husband before they came to visit us. When I told him, he walked out. I thought he left me. He did come back and we worked it out. The truth had set me free. 3 months later, our beautiful son was born, and he was 2 months early, and he almost didn't make it. I sat by him every day till the nurses made me leave for shift change. I prayed to God for my little boy to live. When my mom saw him, she lost control, tried to kidnap our daughter because she didn't like the way my husband spoke to me. My husband and I had the military police escort her out of our home. That was one of the hardest things for me to do. On her way home from North Carolina to Alabama, she was arrested after wrecking her car. I didn't realize then I could not have her around my children unsupervised.